Saddle the mare and unkennel the pack.
What's happened, Baskerville?
The cage is empty and the birds escaped. The lass is gone. Put the hounds upon her. This very night I shall render my body and soul to the powers of evil, if I might but overtake the wench.
The girl must have fled onward across the moor. It's 3 leagues betwixt the hall and her father's farm.
What deed is like to be done upon the moorland? To horse!
Oi, stay on, lad!
You man!
Let those
That's
hounds
where
go.
by night's end. The maid must needs have taken this course if she were to reach her own home.
There's the night shepherd. Have you seen the huntsman?
There was a maiden, sir, with hounds upon her track. But I have seen more than that. So you go, Baskerville, pass me upon his black mare. And there ran mute behind him such a hound of hell, as God forbid should ever be at my heels.
Curse you, man!
You
What
rang
glory!
tall tale.
Which way?
Why, towards the standing stone, sir.
Slow! Slow! Look ahead!
Baskerville's mare! Her saddle's empty! She's doubled with froth! Catch her! Damn!
Look, there's the pack! What's got into them? They're all hackles and staring eyes!
There, by the stones! It's the girl! She's dead! Dead of fear and of fatigue! Not a mark upon her!
Over there! Quickly! Baskerville! Baskerville! His throat! It's torn out! He's a bloody rat!
What's that? Good Lord preserve us! Oh Lord!
Oh,
Ride for dear life!
my God.
Ride!
Well, Watson, what do you make of it?
How did you know what I was doing? I believe you have eyes in the back of your head.
I have at least a well-polished, silver-plated coffee pot in front of me. But tell me, Watson, what do you make of our visitor's stick? Since we have been so unfortunate as to miss him and have no notion of his errand, this accidental souvenir becomes of importance. Let me hear you reconstruct the man by an examination of it.
It has a broad silver band with to James Mortimer, MRCS, from his friends of the CCH engraved upon it, with the date 1884. I think the probability is in favour of his being a country practitioner who does a great deal of his visiting on foot.
Why so?
Because this stick, though originally a very handsome one, has been so knocked about that I can hardly imagine a town practitioner carrying it. The thick iron ferrule is worn down, so it is evident that he has done a great amount of walking with it.
Perfectly sound.
And then again, there is the Friends of the CCH. I should guess that to be the something hunt. The local hunt to whose members he has possibly given some surgical assistance, and which has made him a small presentation in return.
Really, Watson, you excel yourself. Interesting, though elementary. There are certainly one or two indications upon the stick. It gives us the basis for several deductions. It may be that you are not yourself luminous, but you are a conductor of light. Some people without possessing genius have a remarkable power of stimulating it.
Has anything escaped me? I trust that there is nothing of consequence which I have overlooked.
I am afraid, my dear Watson, that when I said that you stimulated me, I meant, to be frank, that in noting your fallacies, I was occasionally guided towards the truth. Not that you are entirely wrong in this instance. The man is certainly a country practitioner, and he walks a good deal.
Then I was right.
To that extent, but that was all. I would suggest, for example, that a presentation to a doctor is more likely to come from a hospital than from a hunt, and that when the initials CC are placed before that hospital, the words Charing Cross very naturally suggest themselves.
Well then, supposing that CCH does stand for Charing Cross Hospital, I can only think of the obvious conclusion that the man has practiced in town before going to the country.
I think that we might venture a little farther than this. When would his friends unite to give him a pledge of their goodwill? Obviously, at the moment when Dr. Mortimer withdrew from the service of the hospital in order to start a country practice for himself. You will observe that he could not have been a man well established on the staff of the hospital, since such a one would not drift into the country. What was he then? If he was in the hospital and yet not on the staff, he could have been little more than a senior student. And he left 5 years ago. The date is on the stick. So your grave, middle-aged family practitioner vanishes into thin air, my dear Watson, and there emerges a young fellow under 30, amiable, unambitious, absent-minded, and the possessor of a favourite dog.
As to the latter part, I have no means of checking you, but at least it is not difficult to find out a few particulars about the man's age and professional career in the medical directory. Mortimer James, MRCS, from 1882 to 1884, at Charing Cross Hospital. Medical officer for the parishes of Grimpen, Thorsley, and Highbarrow, 1885 on.
No mention of that local hunt, Watson, but a country doctor, as you very astutely observed. As to the adjectives, it is my experience that it is only an amiable man in this world who receives testimonials, only an ambitious one who abandons the London career for the country, and only an absent-minded one who leaves his stick and not his visiting card after waiting an hour in your room.
And the dog?
Has been in the habit of carrying this stick behind his master. The dog's jaw, as shown in the space between these marks, is too broad, in my opinion, for a terrier, and not broad enough for a mastiff. It may have been... Yes, by Jove, it is a curly-haired spaniel.
My dear fellow, how can you possibly be so sure of that?
For the very simple reason that I see the dog himself on our very doorstep. And there is the ring of its owner. Come in.
I presume that it is Mr. Sherlock Holmes whom I am addressing, and not...
No, this is my friend Dr. Watson.
A fellow practitioner, and holding my stick. I was not sure whether I had left it here or in the shipping office. I would not lose that stick for the world. I am so very glad. For one or two friends on the occasion of my marriage.
Oh, dear, that's very bad.
Why was it bad?
Only that you have disarranged our little deductions.
This is Sir Henry Baskerville.
The strange thing is, Mr. Holmes, that if my friend here had not proposed coming round to you this morning, I should have come on my own account. I understand that you think out little puzzles, and I've had one this morning which wants more thinking out than I am able to give it. This letter, if you can call it a letter, which reached me this morning. All the letters are cut from some other publication and pasted in.
Sir Henry Baskerville, Northumberland Hotel. As you value your life or your reason, keep away from the moor. Who knew that you were going to the Northumberland Hotel?
No one could have known. We only decided after I met Dr. Mortimer.
No, I had been staying with a friend.
Have you yesterday's Times, Watson?
It is here in the corner.
capital article, this, on free trade. Permit me to point you to an extract from it.
You may be cajoled into imagining that your own special trade or your own industry will be encouraged by a protective tariff, but it stands to reason that such legislation must in the long run keep away wealth from the country, diminish the value of our imports, and lower the general conditions of life in this island.
I don't know much about the tariff and things of that kind, but it seems to me we've got a bit off the trail so far as that note is concerned.
And yet there is so very close a connection that the one is extracted out of the other. You, your life, reason, value. If any possible doubt remained, it is settled by the fact that keep away and from the are cut out in one piece.
So far as I can follow you then, Mr. Holmes, someone cut out this message with scissors.
Nail scissors.
Someone then cut out the message with a pair of short-bladed scissors, pasted it with paste,
Gum.
with gum onto the paper, but I want to know why the word more should have been written.
Because he could not find it in print. That someone is not ill-disposed towards you, since they warn you of danger.
Or it may be that they wish, for their own purposes, to scare me away.
Well, of course, that is possible also. I must thank you for calling my attention to a case which certainly presents some features of interest.
Well, I seem to have come into an inheritance with a vengeance. Perhaps you'll tell me, Mr. Holmes, what in thunder is the meaning of that, and who it is that takes so much interest in my affairs.
Sir Henry is the last of the Baskervilles following the death of Sir Charles Baskerville of Dartmoor. The second brother of Sir Charles, who died young, is the father of this lad, Henry. The only other kinsman whom we have been able to trace was Roger Baskerville, the third brother. He was the black sheep of the family, who made England too hot to hold him, fled to Central America, and died there 25 years ago of yellow fever. I was a friend of Sir Charles. Incredible as it may appear to you, Mr. Holmes, he was honestly convinced that a dreadful fate overhung his family. Sir Charles Baskerville was in the habit every night before going to bed of walking down the famous yew alley of Baskerville Hall, in the course of which he was in the habit of smoking a cigar. On the 4th of May, Sir Charles went out as usual for his nocturnal walk. He never returned. Within the last few months it became increasingly plain to me that Sir Charles's nervous system was strained to the breaking point. At 12 o'clock the Barrymores, the husband acts as butler and the wife as housekeeper, found the hall door still open. At the far end of the yew alley, Sir Charles's body was discovered. No signs of violence were to be discovered upon Sir Charles's person, though there was an incredible facial distortion, so great that I refused at first to believe that it was indeed him.
These are all the public facts?
Indeed.
Let me have the private ones.
In the time of the Great Rebellion, the manor of Baskerville was held by Hugo Baskerville, a most wild, profane, and godless man. So it came to pass that one Michaelmas this Hugo, with 5 or 6 of his idle and wicked companions, stole down upon a farm and carried off a maiden. It chanced that some little time later Hugo left his guest to carry food and drink, with other worse things perchance, to his captive to find her escaped. Hugo cried aloud before all the company that he would that very night render his body and soul to the powers of evil if he might but overtake the wench, ran from the house, and rode off full cry in the moonlight over the moor. His companions took horse and started in pursuit. There they found the unhappy maid where she had fallen, but it was not the sight of her body, nor yet was it the sight that of the body of Hugo Baskerville lying near her, which raised the hair upon the heads of these daredevil roisterers, but it was, standing over Hugo and plucking at his throat, a foul thing, a great black beast, shaped like a hound, yet larger than any hound that ever mortal eye has rested upon. Such is the tale of the coming of the hound, which is said to have plagued the Baskervilles so sorely ever since.
Well?
Do you not find it interesting?
to a collector of fairy tales?
On the night of Sir Charles's death, Barrymore the butler, who made the discovery, sent Perkins the groom on horseback to me. I followed the footsteps down the yew alley. I saw the spot at the moorgate where he seemed to have waited. Sir Charles had evidently stood there for 5 or 10 minutes.
How do you know that?
Because the ash had twice dropped from his cigar.
Excellent. This is a colleague, Watson, after our own heart.
I checked and corroborated all the facts which were mentioned at the inquest, but one false statement was made by Barrymore. He said that there were no traces upon the ground round the body. He did not observe any, but I did. Some little distance off, but fresh and clear.
Footprints?
A man's or a woman's?
Mr. Holmes, they were the footprints of a gigantic hound.
If I had only been there. It is evidently a case of extraordinary interest, and one which presented immense opportunities to the scientific expert. That gravel page upon which I might have read so much has long been smudged by the rain and defaced by the clogs of curious peasants.
You have nothing else to report to us before we go into this matter?
Well, it depends upon what you think worth reporting. I put my new brown boots outside my door last night and there was only one in the morning. Worst of it is I'd only bought the pair last night.
Well, it seems a singularly useless thing to steal.
The practical point which we now have to decide, Sir Henry, is whether it is or is not advisable for you to go to Baskerville Hall.
And whichever it is, my answer is fixed. There is no devil in hell, Mr. Holmes, and there is no man upon earth who can prevent me from going to the home of my own people. Now, look here, Mr. Holmes. It's 11:30 now. I'm going back to my hotel right away. Suppose you and your friend Dr. Watson come round and lunch with us at 2? I'll be able to tell you more clearly then how this thing strikes me.
Then we meet again at 2 o'clock. Au revoir and good morning. You may have observed that I twice strolled over to the window while Dr. Mortimer was reading his legend. I was looking out for loiterers in the street, but I saw none. We are dealing with a clever man, Watson. Look here.
It's a hansom cab. It's following Mortimer and Sir Henry. He's availed himself of a cab so that he could loiter behind. If they were to take a cab, he was all ready to follow them.
It has, however, one obvious disadvantage.
It puts him in the power of the cabman.
Exactly.
Welcome to the Northumberland Hotel.
Mr. Holmes and Dr. Watson for Sir Henry Baskerville.
Oh, Mr. Holmes.
Ah, Wilson, you have not forgotten the little case in which I had the good fortune to help you?
No, sir, indeed I have not. You saved my good name, and perhaps my life.
My dear lady, you exaggerate. I have some recollection, Wilson, that you had among your boys a lad named Cartwright, who showed some ability during the investigation. Could you call him?
Cartwright! Cartwright!
Now, Cartwright, there are the names of hotels here, all in the immediate neighbourhood of Charing Cross. Do you see?
Yes, sir.
You will visit each of these in turn and begin in each case by giving the outside porter 1 shilling.
Yes, sir.
You will tell him that you want to see the waste paper of yesterday. You will say that an important telegram has miscarried and that you are looking for it. What you are really looking for is the centre page of the Times with some holes cut in it with scissors. The odds are enormously against your finding it. There's 10 shillings over in case of emergencies. Let me have a report here.
Sir Henry Baskerville is upstairs expecting you. He asked me to show you up at once when you came.
Well, it seems to me they're playing me for a sucker in this hotel. By thunder, if that girl can't find my missing boot, there will be trouble. I can take a joke with the best, but they've gone over the mark this time.
I have made inquiry all over the hotel. It shall be found, sir. I promise you that if you have a little patience, it will be found.
Still looking for your boot?
Yes, sir, and I mean to find it.
But surely, you said that it was a new brown boot. That is an old black one.
Last night they took one of my brown ones, and today they have sneaked one of the old black. That's 2 boots I've lost, and not even a pair. It's the last thing of mine I'll lose in this den of thieves. Well, Mr. Holmes, you'll excuse my troubling you about such a trifle.
I think it's well worth troubling about.
Oh, you look very serious over it. Seems like the maddest, queerest thing that ever happened to me.
The queerest, perhaps. This case of yours is very complex, Sir Henry, when taken in conjunction with your uncle's death. But we hold several threads in our hands, and the odds are that one or other of them guides us to the truth. We may waste time in following the wrong one, but sooner or later we must come upon the right. You did not know that you were followed this morning from my house?
Followed? By whom?
That, unfortunately, is what we cannot tell you. We have still the cabman who drove the spy.
I have wired to get his name and address from the official registry. He's here now.
I got a message from the head office that a gent at this address had a complaint for number 2704.
I have nothing in the world against you, my good man. On the contrary, I have half a sovereign for you if you will give me a clear answer to my questions. Tell me all about the fare which stood in Baker Street this morning and afterwards followed the 2 gentlemen down Regent Street.
Well, we had pulled up halfway down the street and waited an hour and a half, and 2 gentlemen passed us walking, and we followed down Baker Street till we got 3/4 down Regent Street. Then my gentleman, he threw up the trap and he cried that I should drive right away to Waterloo Station as hard as I could go. I whipped up the mare and we were there under 10 minutes. Then he paid up his 2 guineas like a good un, and away he went into station.
Did he say anything more?
Or he mentioned his name.
Oh, he mentioned his name, did he? That was imprudent. What was the name that he mentioned?
His name was Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, well then, here is your half sovereign. There's another one waiting for you if you can bring any more information.
Good day, sir, and thank you.
The cunning rascal. There goes one of my threads.
Tell me, what are your intentions for Baskerville Hall?
To go there at the end of the week.
Well, Sir Henry, I am of one mind with you as to the advisability of your going down to Devonshire without delay.
On the whole, I think that your decision is a wise one. There is only one provision which I must make. You must certainly not go alone.
Well, is it possible that you could come yourself, Mr. Holmes?
If my friend would undertake it, there is no man who is better worth having at your side when you are in a tight place. No one can say so more confidently than I.
I will come with pleasure. I do not know how I could better employ my time.
Well now, that's real kind of you, Dr. Watson. You see how it is with me, and you know just about as much about the matter as I do. If you will come down to Baskerville Hall and see me through, I'll never forget it.
Then on Saturday, unless you hear to the contrary, we shall meet at the 10:30 train from Paddington. Ah, Cartwright.
I've visited 23 hotels as directed, but I'm sorry to report I was unable to trace a cut sheet of the times.
And there goes a second thread.
Hold on. Look here, under the cabinet outside the door. My missing brown boot.
May all our difficulties vanish so easily. I will not bias your mind by suggesting theories or suspicions, Watson. I wish you simply to report facts in the fullest possible manner to me.
What sort of facts?
Anything which may seem to have a bearing, however indirect, upon the case, and especially the relations between young Baskerville and his neighbours, or any fresh particulars concerning the death of Sir Charles. I have made some inquiries myself in the last few days, but the results have, I fear, been negative.
There is a couple who run the hall by the name of Barrymore, and a groom, if I remember right. There are 2 moorland farmers. There is our friend, Dr. Mortimer, whom I believe to be entirely honest, and there is his wife, of whom we know nothing. There is the naturalist, Stapleton, and there is his sister, who is said to be a young lady of attractions. There is Mr. Frankland of Laughter Hall, who is also an unknown factor, and there are 1 or 2 other neighbours.
These are the folk who must be your very special study. The Barrymores had £500 each from the provision of Sir Charles's will. It's best to ascertain if by any possibility he was in London and in that cab. You have arms, I suppose?
Most certainly. I shall keep my revolver nearby night and day, and never relax my precautions. Ah, Sir Henry, did you get your black boot?
No, sir. It's gone forever.
Indeed. That is very interesting. Well, goodbye. Bear in mind, Sir Henry, one of the phrases in that queer old legend which Dr. Mortimer has read to us, and avoid the moor in those hours of darkness when the powers of evil are exalted. And Watson, it's an ugly business, Watson. An ugly, dangerous business, and the more I see of it, the less I like it. I give you my word that I shall be very glad to have you back safe and sound in Baker Street once more.
Grimton. Next stop, Grimton.
Our destination, gentlemen, or at least a way station. Ah, Perkins, Baskerville's groom. This is Sir Henry.
Sir, the carriage is this way, sir.
Oh, this wonderful place.
I never saw a Devonshire man who did not swear by his county.
It depends upon the breed of men quite as much as on the county.
I've been over a good part of the world since I left it, Dr. Watson. I've never seen a place to compare with it.
But you were very young when you last saw Baskerville Hall, were you not?
I was a boy in my teens at the time of my father's death, and I've never seen the hall, for he lived in a little cottage on the south coast. Thence I went straight to a friend in America. I tell you, it's all as new to me as it is to Dr. Watson. I'm very keen to see the moor.
Are you? Then your wish is easily granted, for there is your first sight of the moor.
Hello, what's this? There's a mounted soldier on the road. What is this, Perkins?
There's a convict escaping Princeton, sir. He's been out 3 days now, and the warders watch every road and every station, but they've no sight of him yet. The farmers around here don't like it, sir, and that's a fact.
Well, I understand they get £5 if they can give information.
Yes, sir, but the chance of £5 is but a poor thing compared to the chance of having your throat cut. You see, it isn't like any ordinary convict. This is a man who would stick at nothing. It is Selden, the Notting Hill murderer.
Ah, I remember the case well. The peculiar ferocity of the crime and the wanton brutality had marked all the actions of the assassin. The commutation of his death sentence had been due to some doubts as to his complete sanity. So atrocious was his conduct.
Oh, goodness me.
Baskerville Hall.
It's just as I imagined it. Is it not the very picture of an old family home? To think that this should be the same hall for which 500 years my people have lived. Was it here? In this avenue?
No. The yew alley is on the other side.
It's no wonder my uncle felt as though trouble was coming on him in such a place as this. It's enough to scare any man. I'll have a row of electric lamps up here inside of 6 months and you won't know it again.
Welcome, Sir Henry. Welcome to Baskerville Hall. I am Barrymore. This is my wife.
Sir?
Would you wish to be shown to your room?
Oh, is it ready?
In a very few minutes, sir. My wife and I will be happy, Sir Henry, to stay with you until you've made your fresh arrangements.
Do you mean that you and your wife wish to leave?
Only when it is quite convenient to you, sir. I feel that also, sir, and so does my husband. But to tell the truth, sir, we were both very much attached to Sir Charles, and his death gave us a shock, and made these surroundings very painful to us. I fear that we shall never again be easy in our minds at Baskerville Hall.
I have no doubt, sir, that we shall succeed in establishing ourselves in some business, as Sir Charles's generosity has given us the means to do so. And now, sir, perhaps I'd best show you to your rooms.
My word, it isn't a very cheerful place.
I suppose one can tone down to it. However, if it suits you, we'll retire early tonight, and perhaps things may seem more cheerful in the morning. Good night, Watson.
Good night, Sir Henry. To his eyes, all seems beautiful, but to me a tinge of melancholy lies upon the countryside.
Good morning! I guess it is ourselves and not the house that we have to blame. Now we're fresh and well, so it's all cheerful once more.
And yet, it was not entirely a question of imagination. Did you, for example, happen to hear someone, a woman I think, sobbing in the night?
Well, that's curious, for I did, when I was half asleep, fancy that I heard something of the sort.
We must find out about this. In the meanwhile, I must find out if Barrymore has been at Baskerville Hall this whole time, or down in London. I'll visit Grimpen Village. It should be a pleasant walk along the edge of the moor.
I have numerous papers to examine after breakfast. Enjoy your stroll, Watson.
Good morning. Are you the postmistress?
Yes, sir, and the village grocer.
Do you deliver the post and telegrams to Baskerville Hall?
Well, I've a clear recollection of a telegram just this week.
Who delivered it?
My lass here. Francis, you delivered that telegram to Mr. Barrymore at the Hall last week, did you not?
Yes, Ma, I delivered it.
Into his own hands?
Well, he was up in the loft at the time, so as I could not put it into his own hands. But I gave it into Mrs. Barrymore's hands, and she promised to deliver it at once.
Did you see Mr. Barrymore?
No, sir. I tell you, he was in the loft.
If you didn't see him, how do you know he was in the loft?
Well, surely his own wife ought to know where he is. Didn't he get the telegram? If there's any mistake, it's from Mr. Barrymore himself to complain.
Oh, of course, you're quite right. Thank you. A devil hound, an escaped convict, a weeping woman, a wry telegrams. Whatever next?
You there, I say! Don't move another step!
Hello?
This path is shut, don't you know? Who are you to trespass?
Sir, I'm a guest of the new Lord of Baskerville Hall, Sir Henry. My name is Watson.
Oh, I thought you were a surveyor or some council man. I'm Frankland, and this is Laughter Hall. I've shut up this right-of-way and defy the parish to make me open it, testing the straight for the old manorial and communal rights. Speaking of the law, I suppose you've heard about this escaped convict? The Notting Hill murderer. Selden, you know. Be careful walking about alone, Mr. Watson.
Oh, it's Doctor.
Ah, you may be interested in this then. I have, being an amateur astronomer, an excellent telescope.
Sir, I'm a medical doctor.
Ah, well, more mundanely, I use it to sweep the moor all day in hopes of catching a glimpse of the escaped convict. I hardly know whether I shall turn the man in or defend him. Good to meet you, sir, and please extend a welcome to Sir Henry. And if you're walking back to Baskerville Hall, please make sure to take the westernmost path. I tore down a gate and have declared that a path has existed there from time immemorial, defying the owner to prosecute me for trespass. Your going down that way would provide a splendid test case. Good day.
Yes, good day.
Go back! Go back and never set foot upon the moor again!
What? Why should I go back? I have only just come.
Can you not tell when a warning is for your own good? Go back to London. Start tonight. Get away from this place at all costs. Hush! My brother is coming. Not a word of what I've said.
Hello, Beryl. You've introduced yourselves, I can see.
Yes, I was telling Sir Henry that...
Why, who do you think this is?
I imagined that it must be Sir Henry Baskerville.
No, only a humble commoner, but his friend.
You will, I'm sure, excuse my presumption, Dr. Watson. I trust that Sir Henry is none the worse for his journey?
He is very well, thank you. But how did you know me?
Here in the moor we are a homely folk and don't wait for formal introductions. I've been Colonel Mortimer, and he pointed you out to me from the window of his surgery as you passed. You may possibly have heard my name from our mutual friend. I'm Thomas Stapleton, of Merry Pit House.
I was telling Dr. Watson that it was rather late for him to see the true beauties of the moor.
What is that?
The peasants say it is the Hound of the Baskervilles calling for its prey. I've heard it once or twice before, but never quite so loud.
You are an educated man. You don't believe such nonsense as that.
Bogs make queer noises sometimes. It's the mud settling, or the water rising, or something. Yes, it's a rather uncanny place altogether.
It's the weirdest, strangest thing that ever I heard in my life. And yet another.
By George, there's another of those miserable ponies.
Something brown is rolling and tossing among the green sedges. Look, it's the pony. It's struggling in the grips out of the mire.
Only yesterday, I saw one of the moor ponies wander into Grimpen Mire. He never came out. I saw his head for quite a long time craning out the bog hole, but it sucked him down at last.
Gone. The mire has him.
It's a bad place, the Great Grimpen Mire.
A moderate walk along this moor path brings us to our home, Merrypit House.
We've marked the way with guiding wands to show the pathway through the mire.
They're daubed with phosphorus, so it's quite safe to traverse the path at night. Perhaps you would accept my invitation to Sir Henry to dine with us in 2 days' time?
I'm sure he would be delighted. Good afternoon, Mr. Stapleton. Miss Stapleton.
I wanted to say to you how sorry I am about the stupid mistake I made in thinking that you were Sir Henry.
Please, please, be frank with me, Miss Stapleton. For ever since I have been here, I have been conscious of shadows all round me.
If you have any influence with Sir Henry, take him away from a place which has always been fatal to his family. The world is wide. Why should he wish to live at the place of danger?
I fear that unless you can give me some more definite information than this, it would be impossible to get him to move.
You know the story of the Hound?
I do not believe in such nonsense.
But I do. Good day, Dr. Watson.
Watson!
Sir Henry! You heard how earnestly Holmes insisted that I should not leave you, and especially that you should not go alone upon the moor.
I'm simply taking a stroll. I'm sure you're the last man in the world who'd wish to be a spoilsport. Who was the lady you were with?
Miss Stapleton. She and her brother have invited us to dinner in 2 days' time. She mistook me for you and kept warning that this was a place of danger that you should leave.
I had heard someone describe her as being a beauty. Well, since I've seen her, I'm in no hurry to leave. I'll certainly take up that invitation. But for now, the sun's setting. We should get back to Baskerville Hall.
Yes, I'm looking forward to food and a night's rest. I wonder if we'll hear that crying again tonight.
As I was leaving the hall, I met Mrs. Barrymore in the long corridor. The sun was full on her face. Her telltale eyes were red, and she glanced at me from between swollen lids.
It was she, then, who wept in the night? Some deep sorrow gnaws ever at her heart. I wonder if she has a guilty memory which haunts her.
I suspect Barrymore of being a domestic tyrant.
I spoke to the postmistress, who says her daughter delivered a telegram to Barrymore, but actually delivered it to his wife, without seeing the man himself.
Do you think he was in London?
One way or the other, we've no proof that he was here.
Well, let's ask him ourselves. Barrymore? Barrymore!
Sir?
Now, look here. A telegram was delivered to you last week, but the girl says you did not receive it yourself.
My correspondence is my own business, sir.
Did the girl deliver it into your own hands?
No, I was in the box room at the time. My wife brought it up to me.
Well, did you answer it yourself?
No, I told my wife what to answer, and she went out to write it. She delivered it to the post office as well.
So nobody could verify your whereabouts last week?
No one but my wife, sir. I do not quite understand the object of your questions. I trust it does not mean I have done anything to forfeit your confidence.
I'm sorry, Barrymore. It's just this damn mystery over Sir Charles's death.
I know something, Sir Henry, and perhaps I should have said it before, but it was long after the inquest I found it out.
Well, do you know how he died?
I know why he was at the gate at that hour. It was to meet a woman.
To meet a woman?
I can't give you the name, sir, but I can give you the initials. Her initials were LL.
How do you know this, Barrymore?
My wife was cleaning out Sir Charles's study. It had never been touched since his death, and she found the ashes of a burned letter in the back of the grate. The greater part of it was charred to pieces, but one little slip, the end of a page, hung together, and the writing could still be read, though it was grey on a black ground. It seemed to be a postscript at the end of the letter, and it said, please, please, as you are a gentleman, burn this letter, and be at the gate by 10 o'clock. And beneath it was signed the initials, LL.
And you have no idea who LL is?
No, sir, no more than you have. But I expect if we could lay our hands upon that lady, we should know more about Sir Charles's death.
Very good, Barrymore. You can go. Well, Watson, what do you think of this new light?
It seems to leave the darkness rather blacker than before. I still feel that there's something singular and questionable about Barrymore's behaviour. We will have to see what the morning brings. Good night, Sir Henry.
Watson.
I
was roused by a step passing my room. On opening the door, I saw a long black shadow trailing down the corridor.
2 or 3 times I have heard steps in the passage, coming and going.
We should be able to shadow him and see what it is he's after.
Well, then we shall do it together.
Look there! There's a glimmer of light coming through that door.
Why, it's Barrymore. He appears to be crouching at the window with the candle held against the glass.
What are you doing here, Barrymore?
Nothing, sir. It was the window, sir. I go round at night to see if they are fastened.
Look here, Barrymore. No lies. What were you doing at that window?
I was doing no harm, sir. I was holding a candle to the window.
And why were you holding a candle to the window?
He must have been holding it as a signal. Let us see if there is any answer. There it is. A tiny pinpoint of yellow light on the moor.
Move your light across the window, Watson.
See, the other moves also.
Now, you rascal! Do you deny that it's a signal? Come, speak up. Who is your confederate out yonder, and what is this conspiracy that is going on? Your family have lived with mine for over 100 years under this roof, and here I find you deep in some dark plot against me?
No, sir. No, not against you.
Mrs. Barrymore?
It is my doing, Sir Henry. All mine. He has done nothing except for my sake and because I asked him.
Well, speak out then. What does this mean?
My unhappy brother is starving on the moor. We cannot let him perish at our very gates. The light is a signal to him that food is ready for him, and his light out yonder is to show the spot to which to bring it.
Then your brother is...
The escaped convict, Sir. Selden. The criminal. The murderer.
Then the crying in the night. It's you.
To me, sir, he was always the little curly-headed boy that I had nursed and played with as an elder sister would. That was why he broke prison, sir. He knew that I was here and that we could not refuse to help him.
The man is a public danger. There are lonely houses scattered over the moor, and he is a fellow who would stick at nothing.
He'll break into no house, sir. I give you my solemn word upon that. But he will never trouble anyone in this country again, I assure you, Sir Henry, that in a very few days the necessary arrangements will have been made, and he will be on his way to South America.
What do you say, Watson?
If he were safely out of the country, it would relieve the taxpayer of a burden.
But how about the chance of his holding someone up before he goes?
He would not do anything so mad, sir. We have provided him with all that he can want. To commit a crime would be to show where he was hiding.
Well, I guess that means we're aiding and abetting a felony, Watson. But after what we've heard, I don't feel I could give the man up, so there's an end to it.
He must be near his light. Let us see if we can get a glimpse of him.
There, in the rocks, in the crevice of which the candle burns, I caught a glimpse when the moon broke through the clouds. It did not look fully like man, but rather a terrible animal face, all seamed and scored with vile passions.
Something has evidently aroused his suspicions. It may have been that Barrymore had some private signal which we had neglected to give.
And there's our man, running with great speed down the brow of the hill, along the lit path from Merripit House. He's gone.
But look! The moon is low upon the right, and I swear I saw the figure of a man upon the tor, silhouetted against it. A tall, thin man.
Yes. It's not the convict. This man is far from the place where the ladder had disappeared. Besides, he is a much taller man.
He is no one whom I have seen down here, and I have now met all the neighbours.
There is another man upon the moor.
Have you seen him?
My brother told me of him, sir, a week ago or more. I don't like it, Dr. Watson. I tell you straight, sir, I don't like it.
Well, tell me frankly what it is that you don't like.
It's all these goings-on, sir. There's foul play somewhere, and there's black villainy brewing, to that I'll swear.
My God, what's that, Watson?
I don't know. It's a sound they have on the moor. I heard it once before.
Watson, it was the cry of a hound.
What do they call this sound?
They say it's the cry of the Hound of the Baskervilles.